What's up, everyone? Welcome to the season finale. Season 1 finale of 3 out of 10 anime fans recommend you check out this podcast if you ever get reincarnated into another world, aka 3 out of 10 anime. This show is all about having fun conversations to rank anime based on a standard set of criteria so they can be compared, contrasted, and recommended. We discuss a different show or movie each week, so whether you're a seasoned weeb or new to the genre, we know you'll have a good time. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. Here's the agenda for each episode. We start by giving our first impressions of the show in one sentence. Then we go into our personal enjoyment, which is our own ranking of 1 to 10 based on how much we liked watching the show. Then we have our technical assessment, where we try to formulate a 1 to 10 ranking based on 4 criteria on a standardized rubric. Then at the end, we give our comparisons and recommendations for show you should watch if you like this week's show, and we give announcement about what we will be covering next time. I'm Brett.
I'm Skyler.
And I'm Braden.
We are your hosts from the United States. We each have varying opinions, tastes, and backgrounds, which should relate in some interesting and relatable dialogue, no matter who you are. We're grateful you're joining us for our season finale of Season 1. We're going to end this season with a banger, and we'll be back in a few weeks for Season 2. But to wrap up Season 1, we are doing Re:Zero, Starting Life in Another World. We are doing both seasons that are currently released as of 2022, so spoiler warning, expect them. If you don't want spoilers, go watch the show and come back to the episode. Also, mature content. There is mature content in this show, so be aware of that if you decide to watch it. But without further ado, how would you guys describe your first impressions of Re:Zero in one sentence?
I'll stride into this big old honk. Re:Zero is just another fun-filled masterpiece of horror and time travel that gets played for in a way that every gamer will absolutely love watching it, as did for me.
Sweet. Love it. Skyler.
A fresh take on isekai that has me bouncing between hating and loving the main character.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go with a nail-biting adventure that was so hard to stop watching. It was so enticing and drew you in so much and is one of the best isekai I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm. It's honestly right up there with Second Sword Online Season 1 part, first half, obviously.
Yeah.
But
so
it's there.
Let's give our rankings then. Let's all go around the table and rank the show on 1 to 10 how much we enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. Braden, do you want to go first again?
I do. So Re:Zero, Starting Life in Another World, I would give a 10. If not for Season 2.
Okay.
Season 2 ended up being a bit of a... Because, actually, no, let me start again. Season 1 has everything I look for. It has really enriching characters that have wells of depth to them that I can draw every time I watch the show. The art is amazing. The music is incredible. And further, it has actually made a significant impact in my life. If you guys know the character Subaru, with this whole victory cheer, that is something I do now because it seems like the right thing to do in many situations. It feels great to do. So, however, Season 2 is not as strong of an experience, and I couldn't, in good earnest, give it up to a 10 like my other anime. So, I give it an 8.
What is an 8 show to you? Like, what is an 8 for you?
8 show is something that's borderline inspiring. Something that takes, that has a lot of good elements or a lot of promise, it might show, but it usually falls short in this or that, the other element that, I understand why they might have done it, but I didn't agree with it or didn't quite resonate with me. And Season 2 had a long dry spell, so that's what caps it there.
Gotcha. Okay.
Next.
Skyler.
Alrighty. So I gave ReZero a 9.5. So really high for me. And for me, a 9 is a show that I really enjoyed. I will readily recommend. And I will watch it again with others. In fact, I already have watched it with one of my siblings, actually.
Sweet. And I'm going to follow up, Skyler, with the same. I also gave it a 9.5. So for me, a 10 is a show that I liked as much or more than any other show, either because I could not stop watching or because nothing bothered me about it, or the things that bothered me about it were so infinitesimally small that I just completely overlooked them. And then a 9 is a show that I still really love and super enjoy watching, but the things that I do dislike are just enough to keep it from a 10 for me. And so ReZero fits right in between those two. There were a couple little things that bugged me, but I enjoyed it so much that it's almost a 10. In fact, I think ReZero is in my top 10 shows of all time. Yes, it's in my top 10 shows of all time. I love ReZero. So, what did we like about ReZero so much? Like, what was so enjoyable about it for us?
I mean, I started with three different things. I was thinking between Battle Guys, the lack of like intro and outro sequences in this anime. I was thinking on how like just crazy the notion is of a non-powerful isekai hero. There's a lot of juice here, crew. I don't know. Where do you guys want to start in with?
So actually to the point where you talked about where there is no intro outro. Oh, there is. However, whenever there is any time that they needed just a little bit more content, that was the first thing to go.
Absolutely.
I super appreciated that as well.
They were not afraid to cut the intro outro to get more story in if they needed it.
So watching this is a solid 25-minute block of time. There's no, cutting 2 minutes off here or a minute off, and none of that. You're in. There's no skip intro button on sticking Netflix. You're in.
And there's no crazy annoying flashbacks or tons of flashbacks either, which is great.
Yep. That's true.
Yep.
Everything is pretty grounded. You're always in that moment of the show. Wherever you may go. All right. Well,
I think that's actually going to be the thing that I want to kind of lead into this, which is that it's grounded, it's in the moment, because it almost has to be with the format that it's in. Because on Brett's whiteboard back there, live, die, and then for you music nerds, repeat.
Well done. Yes, good, Brett.
But the whole premise, and this is why the first season was so solid, is that you're spending pretty much that entire arc just trying to figure out what's going on. And it's kind of hard in some situations to get ahead, because then they'll go and they'll subvert your expectation of like, oh, you thought it was this? Well, psych, it's not.
Yeah.
And because it was so fresh in that sense, I think that's really what sold it to a lot of people, including myself.
We sell these things all the time and again. It's fresh and well done. Because like there are some moments we get sick of Subaru because this show has to be focused on the main character at all times because of the whole restarting thing. Yet, he brings that character brings it to the table. He has conversations to have that I'm never gonna forget, and that's kind of what I want to lead in with. Is one of my favorite episodes from both seasons. Is season 1, episode 18, called From Zero.
I thought you were gonna say 15. The REM episode.
Is that not the REM episode? I thought it was.
Is 18? Oh wait, 15 is where it starts. 18 is where it comes to a head. They have that conversation, right?
That conversation.
Yeah, that's 18. It's the stuff starts in 15 that kicks off that. Yeah.
So in that episode, one of the as some might say main girl, but side character, and side characters and the main character. Rem talking with Subaru, the main character, get together and talk for a whole 25 minutes on a rooftop. There's no scene changes. There's no other introductory things come in. No quirky water balloon from the sky or some random. It's just conversation in anime for 25 minutes, and they touch on a big relationship conversational stuff, crew. Where do you get an anime that can get away with that? Like, where do these guys get off having those conversations? You know what I mean?
I mean, I think we should amend your statement. Lots of anime gets away with it that are in other genres, right?
Sure, but I haven't
like,
seen them.
That's all slice of life is standing on a rooftop talking for 25 minutes, right?
Yeah,
there's tons of romance anime that do it too. Like it's a common thing, but not in action intense isekai as much. So like,
Yes.
I agree with you if we say that it's within the genre.
That's fair. That's fair. I guess my breath hasn't quite reached that depth of anime.
yeah,
Slice of life.
and I'm going to agree with Brett, which is
Or
that
romance.
that this is one of the few action-oriented shows where there is like the least amount of action possible in an episode, and yet it's still riveting.
Yes. A whole episode of that.
And
Crew. No, go for it. Go for it.
I was gonna say, and I don't think it would be nearly as strong if it wasn't for the incredible development of the characters and their relationships together. Like, that was so well done in this show for most of the characters. There are some characters that I think were really weak in this show, to be honest, but particularly Rem, Subaru, even Ram, like that was a really great, like, the relationship between those three was really great. Bridget, my wife, was even like, what the heck? Like, Amelia doesn't even do anything. She's worthless.
know.
He should just be with Rem. She's clearly best girl. Season 2 helped a lot with Amelia progressing and actually becoming useful. But yeah, Rem was definitely the best girl of season 1.
Wait,
Season 2
Brett.
helped,
Brett,
but
who's Rem?
Oh, great.
Hey.
Knew that was coming at some point. Oh, you got me.
Yep.
oh boy.
Yep. All right. Yeah. Other fun. What are some big moments in this show of either season for you guys?
So I'm going to touch on the beginning, right? Like, first of all, let's all just establish Truck-kun set off this show. Like, he was never shown. Subaru was just looking at a post. He was standing in the road. A truck was never shown, but it was Truck-kun, okay? Let's
Acknowledge
just get that.
Truck-kun. Yeah.
Let's just establish that, first off. But the beginning of when he dies the first time, you really get that, like, oh, like, that was brutal. Like, that was guttural. Like, oh, man, get it? Guttural? Because, you know.
Hey.
And then he just... The first cycle of him getting through the first checkpoint, right? It really draws you into, like, oh man, I'm in for like a gut-wrenching show here, and it continues to deliver on that without becoming stale. Which Skyler mentioned something in one of our previous episodes. It was To Your Eternity, right? And he was like, oh yeah, I know the formula. And I didn't bring it up then, but I was going to be like, this show is literally the same thing, where it's like, oh, guess what? He's going to die again. Oh, he did, and now he's back at a starting point. But they did it so well. By the way, I don't think that about To Your Eternity. That's Skyler opinion, not mine. I think that part of To Your Eternity was also done really well. But this, I like, it was always so great to watch. I rarely found myself going, okay, come on, like, move on from this checkpoint, get on to the next one. I rarely found myself doing it. There were a couple points, but for the most part, I was like, they really took it up to the very edge until it tipped over to the next checkpoint. And sometimes when you thought they'd get there, they didn't. So, like, they did that so well. So well.
Yeah, and to your point, that's something I want to kind of add on to as to why it worked so well. Because sometimes he would reset and you would have no idea why.
Yeah. Yes.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep.
And further, I was going to add in that sometimes he would reset and he did not start the same way again. He was a broken man for whatever happened to get him to that point. The times when he freezes over through a random curse or through Puck, like causing the apocalypse. Or the times when
ending was intense.
Right?
That whole episode was one of my favorites.
Well, that's one of my favorite endings to an episode ever in anime. It's just Puck rising up for the mansion and it just goes to white blizzard, oblivion.
Well, the thing about the whole sequence, and this was going to come up at some point, but I watched ReZero as it was coming out. That one episode, I honestly probably watched around 4 to 5 times.
Oh, dang.
Oh, yeah.
Because the way that it just ended, because again, I was watching it essentially live. Like within an hour of it coming out, I was on Crunchyroll watching the episode.
Oh, wow.
How was that experience for you?
Oh, it was epic, but that's why I had to watch that episode over and over, because it's like, the new episode isn't out yet, so I have to watch this one just to keep myself up.
Right.
But it just hit so hard between Rem, the introduction of Betelgeuse.
Yes.
That episode has so much going
is that
on.
where he comes in? Oh,
because
seriously?
that's when he takes Rem and like twists her and does that whole thing, and then she tells Subaru to live. That's that
Holy
episode.
crap! Are you serious?
That is all that episode. Which is why I watched it over and over.
One of my all-time favorite anime villains. Man, he is nuts. This dude's crazy, guys. I always love it when anime pulls off like a psychological horror. When they pull off something that just gets worms in your brain and they just like tickles it, like, oh, that's real messed up. This guy does not see the world the same way that I do. He sees it in a way that seems to work for him. And it is so messed up, and it leads to him just, the mangling Rem's body. What did he do to even Subaru? He really messed him up, too. Cut off some limbs or something?
He was trying to get Subaru to react because it was the smell of the witch.
Right.
And that's why he was freaking out. I was like, why does the witch love you and not me, essentially? That's why he was going crazy.
But my mind trembles. I'm like, every time I get chills just thinking about it, dude. That's crazy. Because like first it's like messed up, but then when he takes over Subaru later in the season, and then he says my mind trembles in Subaru's body, I'm like, ah, ah, ah.
Yeah, he was very creepy, and that's not my preferred genre. So that was one of the pieces I liked the least about the show.
Really?
Actually,
Yeah.
I did not like that piece
Interesting.
at all. Like I would have rated the show lower, just for his character, and I know he's a great villain, but it's just not my kind of thing. So
Sure.
I disliked it greatly.
I-
Skyler, you mentioned loving and hating Subaru throughout the show. What'd you mean by that?
So, essentially, like, this is one of the few shows that I like this much where my opinion just goes all over the place with Subaru. Because one of the examples is like when he beats the white whale, you're cheering for Subaru and it's like, yeah, and you're pumped up. Mm-hmm. But there are so many other episodes where it's just like, okay, you just need to go die right now so that you can reset and start over, because I do not like what you're doing right now. Examples of this include when he had that whole fight with Amelia after he proclaimed himself her knight and then blew up at her. Mm-hmm. Like, that was one of the times where he was just the least in my eyes. It was just like, oh.
Can I touch on that one for a second?
Go for it.
Because that actually bothered me a lot. Not because, and I want to be clear, not because it was supposed to bother me. It bothered me because I think it was poorly done. Here's what I mean by that. So, in all of the other parts of the show where I was supposed to be annoyed by Subaru, I felt like it was justified. Like, he was at a breaking point. Like, he was he made a decision and it led to something bad and he was like falling apart because of it. But that one in particular, I think was just a little bit too much, and it wasn't really justified. Like, him whole barging into the thing to like declare himself her knight and all that, like, it just wasn't, I don't know, to me it was too over the top without having enough justification underneath it. And so, like, when he was blowing up at her, I wasn't feeling the satisfied, like, oh man, I get where you're coming from, but stop doing that. That's so harmful. And I was just like, that was kind of poorly written. I don't really think they did that part well. All the other times, I was like, yeah, totally. Like, I'm supposed to not like him the most right now, and I'm good with that. But that one in particular, I just don't think was done well. And I think it was a little too far out of left field, and it was forced. That's the big thing. I think it was forced. And that part, I was like, okay, that was a little... the only word I can think of is cheesy, because it wasn't really well justified.
It's like when a trope plays out and you're like, that was not handled right at all. It's like, yeah, sure, he's being gallant and stupid, but it just leaves a bad taste in your mouth afterwards. I know. I was listening to a review of ReZero, kind of prepping for this episode, from Mother's Basement, who he just gushes about the whole thing front and back, and talks about this section in particular as being one of the, but this is when an otaku, because he relates it a lot to how this is like a kind of a war on otakus, as I've kind of put it, is you take a guy who knows what isekai tropes are about and who doesn't do anything with his life, and you make him have to do things with his life. And at this point, he says, yeah, no, people will rush in, gallantly do dumb things, but later he gets in and does this. And I'm like, if you take the broader arc, if you take those notes, yes, you could probably justify that. But myself, yourself, and everybody else I've talked to doesn't like this scene. Like, I don't care if it's a good, like, note to keep the larger story going. If the moment's bad, it's gonna run stale, and I think it does.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think his level of stupid was just so much higher than other times, and I just think it was too much.
Because
it was too much.
It does come up. Like, Super does do what I call his reset, not just if I'm dying, but whenever he seems to, like, progress through a death checkpoint, he seems to have this major reset where he thinks he's all high and mighty, where he just really does some dumb proclamations of love or something stupid. But
Yeah.
that one's easily the most egregious out of both seasons. For sure.
And that was one other thing that kind of bothered me about Subaru overall, is he was such a slow learner, to the point that it was painful sometimes to watch.
Yep.
Obviously you suspend your disbelief when you watch a fictional piece of art, obviously, but you want to be, like, hooked into the world. And one of the things that took me out of the world was just how dumb and slow he was sometimes, where it's like, you really didn't add one and one together? Like, sure, you're under stress, but that's, like, easy, man. Like, come on. And so, like, that, his very, very slow learning curve did grate on me a little bit through the show. It did get a little bit old, especially through season 2, when season 2 kind of slowed down. It focused way more on Roswell and his whole little group in the woods of readers. Like, it slowed down a bit, and then Subaru comes in and has one of his slowest arcs of all.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, I was feeling like, let's get the show on the road. I could have just skipped all the Roswell episodes with that little backstory thing, and I couldn't have cared less. I really couldn't have cared less.
So, I actually recently came to some kind of conclusion regarding why season 2 is as dry and long as it feels. Because I was making my notes here. I was doing the little types. And I was going through and I was listing the arcs. And I was trying to name the arcs of this show. Season 1, you have getting to another world and fighting with Elsa Granhart. This crazy, knife-wielding maniac in the first arc. And then as soon as they beat them, checkpoint. And now it's about surviving the mansion, Roswell's mansion, and saving the village. With the mall beats and all back. All right, that's a long arc. In fact, that's actually probably the longest arc. That's the longest arc of season 1, and it even feels a little bit drawn out there. And then it concludes, and we get to the next part where we're battling with the witch's cult and the white whale. Season 2, I don't remember a checkpoint. It is everything that's like every beat like season 1 had, which are talking with Beatrice, fighting against Elsa, navigating the witch tea party, making deals with Roswell, defeating the Great Rabbit, but they resolve at the end of the season. There's no beat by beat where these things don't resolve in themselves. They don't conclude in a miniature arc. It's a 25 episode, 25 minute, no intro, no outro, full Chungus Among Us of arc that mesh, but it goes long. It goes so long. And there's another, again, great conversations that happen in there, but eesh, it's a little bit of a mess. I'll be honest, for the show, it's a little bit of a mess.
It kind of was.
I will agree that season 2 suffers from pacing problems, which is essentially where in season 1, where you had your portion sizes that were the right size, where you could eat it, move on, eat it, move on. In season 2, they were trying to eat the entire season at once, and so that by the time you finished it, you were already done with it.
So,
and it did, to the pacing point, it did feel like even the main beats felt drawn out really long too. Like Subaru encounters the Witch of Greed in episode 3.
Yeah, like 3.
Episode 2 or 3, and then you get like a taste of it, and then he doesn't encounter them until like later, and then he encounters Echidna, and then like so like it's like, I don't know, it was drawn out. And the witches, I was super glad to start seeing the witches,
right?
But then I was also a little disappointed that it just turned into a harem, and I was like, well, sure, you gotta have the trope in an isekai, I guess, but it was kind of lame for me. I was like, dang it.
Yeah, especially those were like some kind of the Battle Geist, like really out there character setups. Each of the witches have really stark personalities, and then they're a harem. Sure, great. Not great, but they do have really cool character designs. Like those characters are well set up, even if they're not utilized very proliferally through the season.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. We spent the last little bit talking about things we didn't like, and I wanted to get it out of the way because there really wasn't that much to not like for me. Those are the only things that really like come to mind, right? I think we've talked about all of them, so we could probably get back to the things that we super enjoyed about it. Thanks for taking that stint. I think that wraps up all of my negative points.
Of my major beats, the discussion about season 2 specifically is what drove my score down. Like that was the biggest hang up. There's things we could talk about Subaru and other minor characters, but season 1 was incredible. We can't emphasize this enough. It was. And even in season 2, go ahead.
That's why for me, I went a 9.5 so high, because like all the things we said we don't like would be enough in another show for me to take it down to like a 7.5 or an 8.
Oh, yeah.
But this show just drew me in so much. And the other thing I loved about this show, and I've said this so much on this podcast, I love not knowing what's going to happen. I love mysteries and not being able to figure out what's going to happen for good reasons. Not stupid reasons like Moriarty the Patriot, where it's like you couldn't have figured it out because their whole plan was to bring in this sniper guy and make him shoot at a guy's feet 5 times so he falls in a river. Like absolutely stupid, contrived mystery that you could never possibly solve. So I loved that this show kept me on my toes a lot. And I came up, like, as I was watching the show, I wrote down multiple potential endings and to like the different arcs. And I was right a handful of times, but I was wrong a handful of times. And for me, like, I'm not boasting, I'm not trying to be braggadocious that I'm some kind of genius, but like I get the ending of story arcs and shows right really often. But this show kept me on my toes, and I didn't get a lot of them.
Brett, do you still have that list?
Actually, it's a note on my phone. I'll have to go see.
If you could give us some of those wrong endings, I'd love to hear where you deviated.
The main one that comes to mind is the rabbit ending, right? Because there was this whole setup of like, you've got to kill them all at once in the same place. By the way, they're attracted to huge amounts of mana or whatever the magic in the world is called. And so I was like, oh, they're totally setting this up where either Amelia is going to cause like a big thing in the middle, and then they're going to use this ability to trap them all in this area. They're going to protect themselves in this way, and then they would like blow them all up at the same time. Mm-hmm. And I did like I have more details in my phone. I'll have to go find the note, but I was like putting together all kinds of pieces from all the different things in the show, and I was actually a little disappointed with the way that they did end up taking them out, because it wasn't quite as intricate as the idea I had come up with in my head. But I was like, okay, like it's a way to do it. It's fine. But that's the main one that I was wrong on, because like all these little pieces I had drawn together, and I'm like, oh yeah, it all fits. This is totally where they're going. And then they got to the end, and I'm like, okay, that's a little simpler and a little kind of more convenient, but sure, it works.
Cool. Skyler, you got any more notes? Things you really liked about ReZero?
Just a similar note on that. Normally, some of the things that bothered me in this would dock it down pretty significantly. Mm-hmm. But because of how well they executed on it, it didn't dock it, or it kind of contributed to the feeling of the show overall. Yeah, I just really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to it still.
When does season 3 come out? Do we know?
Yeah, Scotty, you want to look that up?
Yeah, I'll look that up real quick.
Yeah. While he's doing that, I just want to give my last note on my personal enjoyment side. That's all I really have here is, like I mentioned the Rem and Subaru conversation, episode 18, yet they have conversations, and some really, really cool conversations to have about trauma, about relationships, and about family even. I'm thinking about season 2. Two of the greatest episodes was one when Subaru had to go through one of the trials of the witch's, dungeon or whatever that thing was.
Right.
In order to and encounters his own past, and him having to come to terms with his parents, and that is such a cool way to do backstory for a character. Because
that was really good. I loved that episode.
Right?
I loved that episode. Oh man,
the
that
scenery,
episode was so good.
Like the whitey vignette with the like walking through the trees and having conversations with his mom and his dad.
Yeah,
like way to come to terms with a backstory occurred. That is incredible writing. Mm-hmm. And then also in that same season when he and Amelia had their first fight, because they've kind of had like little spats or whatever, but about mid-season they have about 10 minutes of, okay, why are you like this? Why do you do this way? It's been a bit, so I can't beat the conversation, but I remember that conversation was one of the greats of this show. They dwelt and spent time into saying, okay, I know I'm like this. Why can't you accept me like this? And like, well, I'm like this, and this does not work. Beautiful, beautiful,
yeah,
immaculate.
And I really like. I'm a sucker for romance. I love romance, and I'm so glad there was like. I still wanted a little more of the romance side, and again, because Subaru is so slow, it was kind of painful, but there was a lot of good romantic moments in this show, and I'm very excited for the romance part to continue. Like, it was a good part of it. It was a good part of it.
Still a bit in the Rem camp myself, but season 2 did a lot of work for Amelia. As of right now, season 3 has not been announced, but people are expecting it to be sometime in 2023.
That would be great. I mean, the last season did end in 2021, and before that was a pretty big gap between season 1 and season 2, if I remember right. Yeah. So, sure. Please take the time you need to make good stuff. We understand. We're sad, but we understand. Keep going.
Yeah. So, I really liked Elsa. The gutting character. Mm-hmm. She was so good.
Hunter.
I loved her. And like, seriously, her backstory in season 2 was just like, it was like 5 minutes, and it was so short, 3 minutes even. It was so short, but it was more, it provided more justification and more context for why she does what she does and how she is than like most other character like villains and other characters get in a lot of other shows. Like all she said was like when she was a little kid, and then I think everyone in her village got killed, right? Or no. She was put up to killing someone. It was freezing cold, and then she was like, the only thing I could do to stay warm and survive was like crawl into the belly of a grown person and stay warm, and the guts were warm, and it like saved my life. And that's where she developed this mental obsession with like warm guts. I was like, oh my gosh, that's so crazy. It's so good. And she like, yeah. And she was so like, I really liked her. And her fight animation, like one thing that disappointed me a little bit about ReZero was there were supposed to be really awesome fight scenes, and there often was, but sometimes they were kind of lackluster. Most of hers were like really fun, and the sound design for her character with the bird noises and everything, like the sound design in this show was on point, super on point.
Was it
really
bird noises?
Really good?
It sounded like they were taking a string, and I forget what the term is, but where they're like making it do that squealing noise, like on a violin.
Oh yeah,
or on
they're bowing.
Stringed
They're bowing on metal.
That's probably how they did it, but it was supposed to be reminiscent of a bird, because like her things that fell down like wings, and the way that she would like hold them out, like she was supposed to resemble like a falcon type of character, like going in with talons like that. And so when she would come in, it would be that, it would conjure that image.
Yep.
So
unfortunately for me,
for a villain, you had the whole Betelgeuse in season 2.
Right? I did not expect to return to Betelgeuse in season 2.
I can't deny he's a great character for all the same reasons. I just didn't like him personally.
Man.
But he's way high up there for like good marks on a solid villain for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I think this show, like Braden, you said, it's just a masterpiece in writing and delivery. Specifically delivery. I think this show does better, as good or better than any other show I've ever seen, honestly, truly. Like it delivers story beats, particularly in season 1. Season 2 not as good as we've talked about, but it just delivers story beats in such an excellent way. Like, man, I wish every other show could take notes about how this show was delivered, like from the script to the edit to the like overarching story, like everything. Like the delivery was just crazy.
Good, Brett. We need you to say those exact same words again, but like half an hour. When we get to the technical scoring part of this.
Yes.
So just record yourself. We'll just insert that in later, obviously.
Yep.
But any last quick hot points for personal enjoyment? Anything that we haven't touched yet between you two?
I liked the music. I thought the music was good. I thought the music was really good. And again, I just love being surprised. My note here after I finished the show, I said, any show that surprises me is a joy. This show left me elated. So I loved the surprises. I just loved the surprises.
Awesome. Skyler, how about you?
No big points come to mind. Just, I'm sure it'll come up in technical.
Okay. All right, that's the Money Crew. Well, let's wrap up personal enjoyment. And Brett, why don't you read us into old technical land?
Okay, so first things first, check us out on 310anime.com, 310anime.com, because you can find our personal rubrics for enjoyment and our technical rubric on our website. You can also find links and backstories behind us, our top 10 anime of all time for enjoyment. So go check us out, 310anime.com, 310anime.com. Now we're going to jump into technical. Again, the rubrics you can find on the website. Technical is 4 categories: art, characters, story, and delivery. And for each of those, we have a scale of 1 to 10, and then we at 1 to 5, we add them all up, divide them by 2, and then we get a score of 10 at the end. We always start with art. Art includes music, animation, sound design, art style, intro and outro. Braden, what is a 1? What is a 5?
In art, our terrible scores are where the composition is frequently ugly, messy, disjointed, bland, boring / repetitive, and poorly done. Where on the opposite end, our 5 scoring arts, our exceptional art animes, are ones where the composition is always beautiful, cohesive, fitting, engaging, notable, ambitious, and expertly performed.
And 3 for all categories is meh. 3 is it's on par with what you would expect from a decent show. It doesn't stand out for being good or bad. It's just there. All right. So, Skyler, I see you thinking. What are your thoughts on art here?
To throw out a number, just to lead out with that, I
Sure.
guess.
Oh, wow.
I would throw it into the 4 range.
That's exactly where I was thinking too.
Because it's like there are things about it that is beautiful, and we've touched on those, like some of the ending sequences, or when they just skip the intro outro, and just how beautiful those sequences are. But there are also just other times where it's just not very good or just average, that it kind of balances out and settles down into about the 4 range.
I think on average, though, it's a very well animated show.
Well, yeah, that's why it's a 4.
Particularly in the areas, I want to call out a couple areas that stood out to me as I was watching. So I think the lighting in this show was actually a really nice thing about it. And the reason I say that is because I think the shadows were done particularly well, and the moments in the dark were done particularly well. Anime sometimes gets into this thing where, like, it's a dark scene and it's like a little bit too dark. And I think that ReZero did a really nice job at having good lighting throughout the scenes, throughout the show. And the moments that were supposed to be notable and like big, I think were notable and big, right? Like taking down the whale, or Subaru having the witch attack his heart when he's trying to tell someone his power. The sound design when he wakes up, the dun, right? Like that was my text message tone, and it just grabs your attention, and like you memorize that sound by the end of the show. So yeah, I think a lot of those pieces, I agree with you, Skyler. I think it did really stand out. It's often all those great things.
Another sound shout out I want to toss in here is the whoa.
Yeah.
Whenever we're getting to Spooky Land with the witch, that also is frequently accompanied by that soundbite. I think I had that on my stream deck for when I used to stream.
Oh, nice.
Because, spooky things happen. We play a lot of horror games. It's good stuff.
They used musical themes really well throughout this show.
Yeah.
What's the term for Satella's motif?
Probably.
Yeah.
I'll take it. I think the thing that's holding us, that I wouldn't propose the thing that might be holding us back from giving this an outstanding art score is possibly ambition. They do a lot of things solid, like pretty solidly well, but there's nothing here that like breaks the bonds of what we expect from typical anime setup. It's done very well, but maybe not nothing we, again, like something we say often is nothing we don't expect. This is a pretty straightforward, straight-handed anime.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess to that point, it's like I was thinking about shows that we've given a 4.5 to, and this doesn't live up to the 4.5 that we've given out.
Okay, but we also never have never given a 5, so anything that's extraordinary in art has landed just a little bit under so far for us.
Sure, but I'm saying even for the ones at 4.5, ReZero is below those. Just a little bit.
We're talking like Cowboy Bebop, Mob Psycho 100,
Plays further than the universe.
Which, each one of those lock in their art styles to an unbelievable degree, and this sits solidly strong.
Yeah, I agree. It's very strong in the department, but it wasn't a show that was like, we're gonna set out to really make a piece of art from an artist's perspective. This show was really trying to be something else that's in the other categories, but they did this piece super well. So I'm fully on board with a 4 for sure.
Now, where do we talk about sticking Amelia's face? Is that here in art? Do you know what I'm talking about? That weird, like, doll-looking, like, shiny cheeks. And...
I mean that's probably part of her character design, but yeah, art. I think it's there too.
I think it's.
What note do you want to make?
Also, I think it's. I mean, it's just that. It's like I think her, Ram, a couple of the female characters have this weird, shiny doll complexion. Looks like hyper makeup and glossy. It's weird. You get used to it, but it's weird.
That would be a part of the art style, I would say.
Because it's just a thing. I think I tossed an art. I don't think it makes any more of a note, but it needs to be said somewhere in this technical scoring discussion because it's weird.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, it's a little bit.
Well then, how are we feeling?
I'm on board with a 4.
I'm on board with 4.
All right, 4 it is.
Lock her in.
Okay, that brings us to story. Story includes plot devices, tone/mood, continuity, world building, pacing, rules and systems, and tropes. Braden, what's a 1 and a 5?
Our ones. First, the story category. Our terrible stories are ones that are frequently nonsensical, inconsistent, boring, confusing, ambiguous, unoriginal, and disappointing. Sorry, anyway, we'll get to that in a minute. Our 5 stories are exceptional. There are stories that are always well-paced, consistent, comprehensible, consummate, on point in its mood and tone, and unique. And sorry, all that was, I was trying to apply any of those words to ReZero. And I mean, actually, this is where that comes in, is season 2. Had the boring, possibly more repetitive, possibly confusing elements come in, even though season 1 did it so stinking well. Season 2 exists.
Okay, yeah, here's the thing. I think we could all probably say on the same page where season 1 of ReZero is a 5.
Yeah.
Easily.
Easy.
Yeah.
Easy. Probably the easiest 5 for story we've given for season 1.
Yep.
So here's the real question. How much does season 2 detract from a 5?
Yeah.
The word that draws my attention for season 2 that does not match with the 5 is well-paced.
Okay.
I agree.
Yeah, because we're talking about how season 1 had those consummate bites. We could just take a hold of them. We're like, all right, that's that bite. Good. We move on. That's that bite. Good. All right, now we move on. And season 2 has all the intricacies and world building and strength of just stuff happening, but it's hard to keep on top because it's huge. It's a whole stupid season that goes on a little bit long.
Yep.
Yeah, so my only question then is essentially how much does that attract from
That's
both
what we're
seasons
saying.
Overall?
So here's the bite though: is because the only note so far the only note we have against season 2 is its pacing, right?
Not quite. I have a couple other things I wanted to bring up.
Perfect. Lead into those. Go for it.
Okay, so let's instead of looking at the good side of the rubric. Let's go over to the other side of the rubric. Let's look at the 2 category. I'm not saying it's a 2, but I'm saying let's look at the adjectives we use to describe a 2. The story is sometimes nonsensical. I don't think the story is nonsensical in season 2. Inconsistent. I wouldn't call it inconsistent. Boring. I actually would go there. I would say because of the pacing, season 2 is kind of boring. Confusing. There are times in season 2 where, particularly when he's having conversations with the witches, that I've had a couple of people ask me like, "Hey, wait, what's going on? And they leave it off on a cliffhanger, but not in a good feeling way. Sometimes, in a way that's like, I really wish they could have done that a little bit better. Ambiguous. I actually do think season 2 gets more into the ambiguous territory because they try to wait to give you insight into what Subaru's doing and what Amelia's doing. Think about specifically the witches' trials, right? Think about the witches' trials. There's all this buildup for the witches' trials, right? You finally get to see one, and then they just drag it on. And even the reasons why the witches' trials fail or succeed, like the payout of learning like the key behind it wasn't really that fulfilling, and it wasn't like it was like, oh, okay, you faced your fear. Nice.
It was an interesting moment to see Amelia break down, lose her very strong heroine exterior, but yes. Also,
it was nice, but it was kind of in that ambiguous side of things. Like, I don't think it was as well delivered story-wise as season 1. I'm not gonna call it unoriginal. I will call it a little disappointing, especially when you compare it to season 1, which was so consummate.
Maybe a little bit.
Well, I'm not saying season 2 is bad, but I'm just saying if I think about those adjectives, they start to creep into my mind about season 2 did kind of have some of those things in it.
So to draw one comparison between season 1 and season 2 with 2 arcs, you have the mansion arc, and in the mansion arc, you do have a few things going on at once. And that is something that kind of happens in season 2 as well, is that you have several things happening at once. However, with the mansion arc, one was kind of resolved before he even moved on to start addressing the other things that was happening at the mansion arc, namely essentially the mob beast and his curse. He essentially had to figure out the whole thing with Rem first before he could even think about doing anything else. And so I think in season 2, the way that they could have kind of fixed that is essentially kind of like Brain said, break it down into those better digestible pieces where it's like, okay, here is this problem. And even though it is all one big problem, I figured out this portion. This portion of this issue has been done and set aside. And from there on, it's just like, yeah, I know what I need to do to fix that. Our attention is now on the next problem in this section of problems. And so you can still get the interference from each other, but they didn't do that.
Yeah. I think the highlight for season 2 for me, there were a couple highlights. Anyway, let's keep talking about
so I want to give a little bit of pushback against your list there, Brett, when we were looking at the bad list. Disappointing. I was not in arc disappointed with what we got in season 2, between the backstory stuff, between the Great Rabbit. I guess the Great Rabbit solution wasn't the most set up thing, something that you had talked about earlier. But it being this ferocious thing and it being resolved in this season was pretty cool. Getting to meet the witches was a good beat. And often, especially compared to the typical anime, they do tempo pretty well on fulfilling a lot of world building and resolving a whole lot of big major plot points through the season.
Yeah.
And so I like your discussion, Brett, but I also want to ask, how do the things that we didn't like compare to normal anime for season 2?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's really good. I think for me, like, as I'm considering that question, I think season 2 is still good. Like, it's still really good, right? It's really, really good. It's just because it's not as good as season 1, that's where we're trying to focus around. And another example of like story for season 2, they spent a lot of time on Frederica and Garfield.
Yes, they do.
That story was not that enticing to me. Like, I do not think that was a highlight of season 2, but they really wanted it to be a highlight, and that part of the story was just kind of flat.
Especially since didn't Garfield take on Elsa at the end of that season? Was that one of the big payouts for that?
Yes, that is correct. Him and Frederica did it together. So, like, here's why I bring that. Why do I even bring that up? Because, like Skyler was mentioning, I think the story beats in the second season, in particular, were good but not great. So, like, for me, if I'm looking here, I would be more than comfortable giving ReZero a 4 to a 4.5. Anywhere in that range. I think it still deserves to be way up there. But I could not give a 5 or even a 4.5 is reaching for me when, like, anyway, that's my thought. What do you guys think?
I would give season 2 a 4 on story. So between the 4 in season 2 and a 5 in season 1, I'm happy with a 4.5 score. That's what I was going to propose.
That was pretty much my logic as well.
Sweet. Okay, let's land it. Let's touch this plane
I
down.
think so. Let's ring
It's a
that in there.
4.5.
Let's get a next checkpoint. Let's go.
Okay, next checkpoint. Okay. Characters is next. We have character design, development, motivation, action/inaction, relationships, and personality. What's a 1 in 5, Braden?
Man, yeah, our terrible characters in anime are characters that are frequently unreasonable, confusing, inconsistent, unreasonably static or dynamic, and annoying. While our exceptional 5-scoring anime have characters that are always understandable, consistent, reasonable, adequately static, dynamic, and relatable.
I'll kick this discussion off.
Please.
I'll kick this discussion off. And I'm not gonna start with our main characters. We've talked about the main characters a lot. And I'm specifically classifying the main characters as Amelia, Subaru, Ram, and Rem primarily.
Yeah.
Right? If I'm thinking about the side supporting cast, I think that the supporting cast was really good. So we have Puck, Roswell, Otto. You even have Patrash, the little
The raptor!
yeah,
the
raptor
raptor!
Petra, Frederica, Garfield, and then you have the other like Baron people, right? So you have like Ferris Wilhelm. Wilhelm was super awesome. Krush. Then you have Anastasia's camp, which has Julius in it, where him and I almost said Rimuru. Gosh dang it, Subaru had their whole headbutting thing. Then you have Priscilla's camp, and you have Felt and her whole camp, and of course Reinhardt and the big Rom guy is in Felt's camp. I'm listing all the side characters because I think the side characters range on this scale, and this show made the side characters a big deal. They made the characters a big deal. I forgot to mention Beatrice, I think. She's a huge side character. So, because the side characters are such a big deal in this show, I think they consume a good amount of weight in the scoring. And I think the characters range everywhere from bad/meh to really, really good.
Okay, interesting. Because I was going to propose a kind of different line of conversation. I was going to say talk about this much the way we talked about Haikyuu's character list, and having a huge swath of characters whose involvement is important to the main story, and also to how the storylines progress and our heroes, character arcs go. And while we don't always key in with some of them, they do have a very concrete purpose in the show.
Yes, and I will add on to Braden's point is that in terms of where the anime is versus where like the light novels are, we've got a ways to go.
That's crazy.
Like
There's already so many characters.
And there's going to be a lot more characters introduced.
Oh,
and so
man.
there is a ton of setup that is being done right now for a lot of these characters.
Okay, so
To bring up the Haikyuu thing.
between the two conversation starts here, we have our groundwork. Brett, lead us into some of the not great characters.
Sorry, dog bark.
I heard
Okay.
ya.
So, okay. I'll give some of the characters that I thought were a little bit weaker, and I thought didn't contribute to the show as much as they could have. And I specify that because not every character is going to be amazing, but every character has a lot of potential. So I think some of the characters that fell short, we already talked about, Frederica and Garfield. They had a lot of screen time, and I don't think it was that used super well. I actually think Wilhelm Ferris and Krush, I think their piece was actually really good. I really enjoyed that whole piece. Most of the people... Go ahead.
I'd say I liked Ferris more than I thought I would. The cat boy.
Yeah.
Being around, that was a good flavor for the screen.
You gotta have a girl cat boy in
Gotta
your
have
anime.
a girl cat boy in your anime.
It's gotta be there.
It's a trap.
It's It's in this one. There's a little bit of cat, maidish. In Steins Gate, you gotta have your cat boy, cat girl characters. Have to.
I think that as far as like the witches go, they started out very interesting, but once it turned into a harem, they became very flat. Like very flat. They had so much dynamic potential, but then once everyone started to stan for Subaru, they all just kind of took on the same note, and they became far less interesting as characters because of that. And I think that was a really disappointing use of an interesting character. So those are just some points to throw out there. Also, Beatrice. I wanted to talk on Beatrice. I think she was actually a really good character. She had a lot of complexity and depth to her. And a lot of times, I wish they spent more time on her. I'm still, again, slightly disappointed that they just turned her into a piece of the harem. That was really disappointing. You have these great characters who can be so independent and find their own motivation and value that they can bring to the world, and then 70% of them get adopted into the harem. That's the trope part of this. We didn't talk about it in story, but that's the tropey character part that I think was seriously disappointing and detracting from the characters of the show. The witches, Beatrice, Rem, like seriously, I think that part was a huge disservice.
I don't know. Because like the harem-y stuff, I don't, especially with the witches, I didn't like it when it came up there. But there is also harem-y stuff in Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai, and we've kind of like run by that because the main character's already picked a girl, as he has in this anime. It changes how the conversations go, even though the side harem-y characters still have their feelings and conversations that they still have to have. Like Beatrice, the little lolly in the castle, she has some really interesting motivations, especially since she's kind of a fatalistic, book worshipping, cult worship, or part of the witch's cult. Like, that is an incredible reveal that shows how her entire motivations have always persisted throughout this show.
Yes!
Including her involvement with Subaru.
Totally. Yep. Yes, I completely agree. And same thing with the witches. But then what happens? Their motivation gets downgraded. That's where I think, like, okay, with other shows, right, the characters aren't developed as well. Their motivation and action and inaction and their personalities are not as well developed as in ReZero. Like, Beatrice has this whole entire character thing, and yes, she's wanting to be saved. Like, that's really her whole thing, is she's waiting for someone to come and save her. So when Subaru's that person, sort of, not really, he tries to convince her anyway, point is, even after all of that, she all of a sudden is kind of just downgraded to the harem thing. The witches have all of these fascinating motivations and things, and then everyone just stands for Subaru. So like I guess these characters were on such a high level that for them to kind of like when all of the witches showed up and they were all just like wanting to help Subaru all of a sudden, I was like, oh, come on, like, we took a step down. In Sword Art Online, another fantastic isekai,
that also deals with the harem.
The characters that you're introduced to as the harem, they're not that great characters anyway. They're okay. They're mid characters. Like, if they're on a harem level, well, they were kind of mid to begin with. But like, if they were great characters and they had their own thing going for them and then they just became part of the harem, I'd be like, that kind of sucks. So anyway, I'm going to get off this horse because I've been on it for a while, but I really want to put it out there that I think like the quality of the characters' motivation and personalities takes a hit when all of that happened. So anyway.
I have one other note, because we're talking about descending from, or like ascending from a 4, descending from a 5. We're talking about that range here, because there's just some incredible stuff that happens with these characters and how they get to interact. is the Subaru mark, the Subaru reset, the boy that cannot quit being a whiny little git after he makes so much good progress.
Yeah.
We've already talked about it. That is a dock against in this part of the conversation. So where are we at then? We have a huge breadth of characters that gets fairly more fleshed out. A lot of female ones get tainted by the harem trope. We have Subaru kind of being a bummer and not really fulfilling his growths, and we have extenuating time put on the two Beast characters in season 2. So, how are we feeling about characters, Crow?
I ranted a lot, but I think the characters are still fantastic.
Absolutely. Like, again,
Like, seriously fantastic. I ranted because they are so fantastic that I feel sad when they are treated not as fantastic. So
Yeah.
like Braden and I have talked this whole time. Skyler, what are your thoughts? Like round us out here.
So to round out, yeah, while the harem trope is kind of annoying, one thing that again was kind of refreshing was that it's not full harem. You have, Otto, you have
Otto was part of the harem, man.
Otto was part of the harem.
Otto was part of the harem straight up.
Oh dear. You have, I'm blanking on his name, but the swordsman that you brought up.
Wilhelm.
Wilhelm. Yeah, Wilhelm. And so
his
you
wife.
have these.
And
Yeah,
Rom.
and so you have these characters and people that give their aid and essentially give their trust to Subaru. But I guess that where this genre is so prone to harems, it's just so easy to kind of lump it in there, or that's kind of the easy path out, for lack of a better term. Because like with Otto, I don't see Otto as like a harem thing. He's just like, no, like I'm your best friend. That's how I see it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you decided to leave me out, I'm getting mad and I want to hit you for it. And that's what happens.
Mm-hmm. I'm just saying there was a lot of bromance going on.
Yeah,
They were cute. I loved it. I loved it. But yeah.
And so, again, where it's like looking between good and bad, well, just reading the exceptional, the characters are always understandable, consistent, reasonable, adequately static, dynamic, and relatable. They do that most of the time, even the side characters.
Very true. I agree. Yeah, I agree.
And even then, for some of those that we don't quite know about, with the track record that they are setting, it's probably just that we don't have enough information yet to be like, oh, that's why you do that thing.
Yeah, this conversation so good.
And so yeah, where ReZero is ongoing.
Sure.
Okay,
But
you guys.
We're ready. What we've already got so far, right?
You guys. Go ahead.
We're rating on what we've already got so far, and I just want to, like, on the whole good character versus harem bit wrap on, I just want to touch on that, like, we often know that there are things that take away from 5-star or 5-rated parts of other anime. Like, it's not always perfect. It's not always going to be perfect. Yet incredible things still can come from it. Mm-hmm. Now, enough of our conversation has come out to make me think that really this cannot be a 5. Like, as much as strong as these characters and conversations happen, there are some major things that we really can't just walk past, even though there's some things that honestly stand out beyond this one, beyond normal anime in regards to characters. So,
and we talked a lot about Subaru's points in our enjoyment section, so we haven't even brought those up, but they carry over.
Yes.
Yep.
So I am feeling that we're tucking around a 4.5 for characters. What would you guys say?
Yeah, about that range.
Yeah, I'd be totally fine with a 4.5. I would maybe push more. 4.5. Yep, 4.5. Yeah. I think that's good.
Were you gonna say that you wanted to push more for the 5, Brett? Or for the 4?
No. I'm gonna push for a 4.5.
No, absolutely. I was gonna say, because I want this to be a 5, because those are the biggest moments, are the moments between characters. However, they just have these major hangups. So
Yep.
I think
Yeah.
we're going to land
Yeah,
at 4.5.
And I wouldn't say major hangups because we're only half a point away from perfect. So like,
Yeah.
I would say they're little hangups.
That's true.
But yeah, even though if we made them seem like a big deal, like we've gotten, this is a quick tangent. Some people have been like, oh man, you guys are so harsh on shows. Well, like if there's a show that we love so much, like our bias is going to be just to like gush on it. So we have to bring up the stuff that's not great because it's the only thing that's really gonna like we can nitpick. And this is a show that's all about like having a rubric and nitpicking. So we're not being too harsh. A 4.5, which I'm putting in right now, is like as high as it gets without being perfect. Like very few shows get a 5 in any category really. So like ReZero getting two 4.5s is like exceptional.
I want to rip in a little recap on the good stuff, the good juice. My favorite characters in this, or my favorite episodes in this animes are the ones with deep conversations between characters, and there are many. We have a breadth of characters that significantly impact the world and have reasonable placement in the world. There's reasons why they're there, and there's reasons why they do what they do. We see those backstories. They're understandable. They're well designed. They're unique. We have them. They're all through there. That's why we're stopping at 4.5, even if we didn't say that in this technical scoring. We wanted to get on those nitpicks. So.
Yep. Thank you. And that brings us to our final category being delivery, which is translation, voice acting for the sub and dub, script, and edit. Braden, what's 1 and 5?
R1 is where the delivery is frequently cheesy, unbalanced, inappropriate, incoherent, and bland. Where R5 anime are exceptional deliveries, or where it's always believable, balanced, genuine, understandable, elevating, and enriching. Okay, Brett, go back to the recording.
Lead off. Yeah, because the whole thing. I'm gonna. Oh, never mind. I shouldn't say that. I'm gonna rewind to a previous checkpoint and bring up that I think the delivery of how this show was presented is exceptional. I'm actually gonna start us off by saying, like Skyler did, I'm gonna present a 4.5 for delivery, and we can start our conversation there. I'm specifically thinking about the script and the edit for it. As far as like the voice acting goes, I also think it was super good. Super good. I'm thinking of only a few things that would keep it from going to a 5, but what are you guys thinking?
I'm in agreement actually, because the voice acting was phenomenal between Amelia, Subaru, and Rem, those three characters, and with the things that we literally just finished talking about. And then when Betelgeuse came up,
his voice is crazy.
The way that they delivered those lines was fantastic, and if that was the only part of the rubric, that'd be an easy 5. But because of a few script issues and, like you said, a few edit issues, it's not a 5.
Yeah.
I want to
Braden, what are you thinking?
I want to toss in that I believe I've seen a significant amount of season 1 in the dub and found nothing wrong with it, because I do like recapping both sides of it. I think it's fine, but I don't remember anything exceptional about it. Or
I did too. The dub was it was okay. There was 2 standout characters in the dub that I remember. Overall it's just a.
Wait, who were they?
Actually, I think Wilhelm was really good in the dub. And then, was it Roswell? I don't remember.
So.
I haven't watched the dub in a long time. But
talking about crazy villains, we can talk about Roswell. Maybe another different setting. But
we didn't really even bring him up anywhere in our discussion. Unfortunately, there's so many people that they're like, this episode could have easily been 2.5 hours.
Yeah,
easily.
We don't want to do that. No, thank you. All right, so the delivery. I love they cut out the intro and outro. I think that was probably an edit claim here. That's not quite an art style. Like, they do have those pieces that are great, but they needed to fill this show. They needed it. I can hardly say this thing was packed front to bottom with with well put together content. So I'm gonna put the points here for cutting out the intro and outro for most episodes.
I think that was really good as well.
That is a good point for it, yes.
What are you thinking? What are you thinking, Sky?
Just specifically with the script, this was brought up earlier, but where it just kind of felt clunky. And it didn't quite do what it should have done.
Like with the witches, like the point that I brought up with like the witches conversations with him.
The witches conversation with him. The whole Emilia Subaru season 1 meltdown that we discussed.
Yes.
Oh, from the castle.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Oh yeah. That's probably the biggest one I have. Honestly, half of that was also just character. That character point we took away. Smoked, because I'm thinking about like our 5 rated delivery anime. We're talking like what, Steins Gate.
Yes.
We're talking. I don't remember if it was a 5, but Sneaking and Ranking of Kings scored high because of its heavy ability to perform sign language. And this, like, the biggest, strongest thing I have are the voice acting notes and the intro, outro, or the edit cut. Like, this, just how this show was put together was phenomenal. I guess we could claim that part of the issue we have season 2 was an editing thing and not more securely tying away certain arcs of story.
I think it's pretty squarely a story
issue. But yeah, that's all I have really. So I have 2 good notes. I don't know if I have any exceptional notes is where I'm getting at.
So another anime that we gave a 5 delivery to is The Great Pretender. Something to pull some reference against.
Yeah. So I don't know. I got a number in my brain. You guys ready for numbers?
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking 4.5.
I was gonna shoot more towards the 4.
Okay.
Just not and so that I don't, because the 2 notes I have are okay. They're strong and they're okay and they set up, but they're not exceptional. I don't think it's reaching. If it is a 4.5, it's reaching up from a 4. It's not reaching down from a 5, in my opinion.
I think for me, the main reason I'm thinking 4.5 is because, again, of the script and the edit, right? So the way that they delivered the story, because you have the story, which is what happens. The script and the edit is how you deliver it. And that includes when you start an episode and when you end an episode, right? How do you slice up the story? And that's one thing I think ReZero did as good or better than any show I've ever seen. When you ended, especially in season 1, right? When you end an episode, you're right at a moment where you're like, oh man, I need to keep going, but I could stop here. But I need to keep going, but I could stop. And like the fact that they maintained that through the entire first season. Season 2, not as great, but man, like
the fact that they were able to pull that off at all.
That was exceptional in my mind.
I could take my bundle of delivery juice all up to a 4, and then that bumps up to a 4.5 because that is consistent throughout the season. So okay, I could be convinced of that. Skyler, what are you thinking?
To me, kind of like I said, if it was just on the voice alone and how they did on the voice acting, that would be a 5 for me. But the script and edit is enough that it drags it down a little bit, not down to a 4, but to a 4.5 for me.
All right, we are kind of wobbly here. It's kind of a agreed upon 4.5, but just from weird angles.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay.
But
all right,
we're there, so let's put it in. Yeah, I'm not going to argue against it. It just might be more conversation to have someplace to like flush that out or something. I don't know. It's weird. That's weird, crew. I'll take it, but it's weird.
Okay, so here we are. We have given, as a recap, art a 4, story 4.5, characters 4.5, delivery 4.5, which gives us a grand total final score of 8.75 technically.
Oh, buddy, that is real stinking good, crew. That is real
Braden, where's
stinking
where's that put us? 8.75.
8.75. As I'm scrolling through here, that puts ReZero as our 4th best technically ranked anime of all time. The ones that are above it at a score of 9 are Steins Gate and Spy X Family. And then our highest score is a 9.75, I think, for A Place for the Universe. Yeah. So it's 4th place. That's very high. That's way above average for our scores. So well done, ReZero. Well done. We like you. We'll keep you.
Sweet.
Take your time. Make season 3, please.
That was good. ReZero is so good.
It's so good.
What else is good? What else do you think our listeners should watch next if they liked ReZero?
Guys, I have one, but it's real weird, so I want somebody else to go first because I don't want to jump away from the ReZero too quickly.
Let's just get it out of the way, okay? The first 14 episodes of Sword Art Online.
Yep.
Let's just get that out of the way. Okay, what next?
I could be next. You guys got one on hand, or I'll be next?
Go for it,
All
man.
right.
Just do it.
If you guys like just crazy conversations about mind-bending craziness, Parasite is my recommendation to tag along with this show. Man,
interesting.
An anime about aliens invading the Earth and taking over bodies to look like humans and integrate into our world brings about some real terrifying conversations about what it means to be you. And Parasite smokes for all of its campy stuff. It is a horror worth watching. It is scary, thrilling, and I love talking about it and recommend it to people. I haven't seen it in a while, but I think I'll toss in for some of the horror thriller stuff we saw here in ReZero.
Okay, all right. I am going to throw out one. Tokyo Revengers.
Ooh, I haven't seen that yet.
It's a newer show. It's pretty darn good. Mikey Kun for the win! I don't want to give any spoilers, but just believe me when I say, if you liked ReZero, you will probably like Tokyo Revengers. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
Skyler, do you have, what recommendation do you have?
This one might seem a little weird, but My Hero Academia. So the reason is that so Subaru is a little bit slow in terms of how fast he learns.
Okay.
My Hero Academia is also a little slow in how fast it develops.
Very true.
There it is. Oh gosh.
But it is good.
Very true.
Yeah, talk about why it's good for a minute while I look through my list really quick.
Well, it's slow burning, but by the time you eventually get to some of the payouts, it gets to be pretty intense. Now, not all the payouts in My Hero Academia are all just fantastic, but some of them are amazing and are an easy recommendation for me for that reason, just like they are with ReZero.
Sweet. I've got another one. I'll give out there.
Go for it.
I'm actually going to throw out there Fire Force. And I'm going to throw out Fire Force because season 1 of Fire Force is freaking heat. It is so dang good. It is fire. It's like the sound design, the music, the animation, the fight scenes, the characters, like, man, season 1 is incredible. Season 2 is not as good, just like ReZero. But if you want something that has some engaging story, some interesting moments, get a really good set of headphones or a good sound system and watch Fire Force. It'll blow your socks off. Yeah, Fire Force is really good. Season 1 especially. Braden, do you have another one?
I do not. No, I do not. I think that's all for me. Although I have another anime I want to recommend to the world, but maybe we'll just make an episode about that another time.
Okay.
So no, for things that are like this one, I think I'm spent. How about you, Skyler?
Okay.
I'll throw out one more. Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood.
Ooh,
It
I
is
like
action,
that. I like
and
that
it
one.
is a solid story. So if you like ReZero for the story, for the characters, and for the action, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood delivers on those 3 points as well.
Very much so.
Never mind. I have a recommendation. It's what Skyler said.
Good. Yeah, it's really good. I will do one more.
Okay.
We have to have another isekai. We haven't had enough isekai, right? We gotta have another isekai. I'm gonna say as another isekai. Sorry, I'm just thinking. There's a couple I'm trying to decide between.
I'm on the edge of my chair for this isekai you're about to whip out. I don't. I know my isekai list. There's only 2 that are on my top, and it's ReZero and it's Sword Art Online season 1 first half. So, I mean first season for me. But what do you got there, Brett?
See, okay, here's the thing about isekai. I'm just gonna let me set this stage real quick. The thing about isekai is, for the most part, isekai is generic, bland, standard, vanilla. Like it's just all of those things. Isekai is a dime a dozen, right? Everything from Bofuri to Slime to Shield Hero. It's just all pretty much the same. ReZero stands out head and shoulders above, I would say, every other isekai that there is. So the recommendation I'm going to make, I'm not saying it's the greatest isekai ever, but I'm recommending it because it's really different from all other isekai. It is not like other isekai. It is Grimgar, Ashes and Illusions.
Oh yeah.
It's very unique in the isekai genre. The tone and mood is completely different. It's also a lot more grounded, and it has some good emotions in the show. So we did a podcast on it a couple episodes back. Go check out the podcast, and you can decide if you want to watch it after listening to that. But it's real good. So that's why I'm going to recommend Grimgar as an isekai.
And also ones that have characters that have good conversations with each other. There's a good tie there too.
Yes, yeah, true. There's great slow moments. The pacing of Grimgar, just as a side note for everyone, the pacing of Grimgar is so exceptional. You will feel like you watched a show twice as long. It's only 12 episodes. You will feel like you got so much more for your time because the pacing is phenomenal. Like, really, really interesting show. So, yeah, definitely check out Grimgar.
All right, crew. I think that's our season wrap up for our first season of 310 Anime, crew.
Season 1 is over.
We did
it. Oh my goodness.
Yeah!
What that means. What does that mean? So this season was a little bit longer than the seasons that we're planning on doing. This season was 15 to 16 standard episodes plus like 4 or 5 bonus episodes. We're going to continue to release bonus episodes in the off season. The off season's not going to be long. It's going to be a few weeks to a month, just to give us a chance to, maybe work on some new content ideas. Maybe get a backlog of videos recorded. Take a little bit of time, maybe to do some summer vacations, things like that. But we'll be back in about a month or so, kicking it off with season 2 of 3 out of 10 anime. So keep an eye out for what's going to be coming down the pipe as a teaser for how we are going to kick off season 2. We are going to do a special episode to kick off season 2. We're going to be doing a combo episode. We're going to be covering 2 shows in one episode. It's going to be a little bit longer because of that. We're covering 2 incredible romance anime from the same studio. We are covering Toradora and Golden Time. It's going to be a great time. So get ready for season 2 coming back sometime at the end of summer 2022. We really appreciate all of you sticking around and watching our episodes for the first season. Again, maybe in season 2 we even make some kind of merch announcement or something. Maybe we'll show up at Comic-Con. Who knows? Part of the off season is to plan all that kind of good stuff, since we're so busy during the on-season recording and getting content out to y'all. So again, thank you from the bottom of our hearts for watching. Check us out, 310anime.com, 310anime.com. And until next time, Jane.
Till the next adventure, crew.
See ya.